Good evening and welcome to the Hamilton Report. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, your host this evening. And as always, I'm grateful that you allow me into your home for half an hour this evening. And I want to say a very special thank you tonight to all of the folks who make this show possible. And by that, I mean our viewers, those of you who come back week after week, who share this broadcast with your friends on social media. It helps a lot for me to know that our word is getting out. And I believe that you and I together are working to make a difference for all Oklahomans. And that makes it all worthwhile. Before we jump into tonight's topic, I just want to say very quickly a word of thanks to all of the guests who have appeared this calendar year on the Hamilton Report. We have covered a tremendous number of topics that from national to local to very local. And that wouldn't have been possible without some of our amazing guests. I learn along with you from them and the insight that they have to offer. And so each week that I interview someone, I leave feeling just a little bit smarter and a little better prepared. And so I want to say thank you to all of the guests who have appeared on this broadcast this year. And especially want to say thank you to Lori Combs and Linda Merriweather, who were my guests last week. I had the pleasure of stopping by the holiday party at the Northeast Oklahoma City Community and Cultural Center yesterday to see the fruits of their labor. And it was truly a magical time. And so thank you to all of those folks who contributed gifts to the children as well. Well, tonight is a little bit different in terms of this broadcast. I'm never, ever nervous about this show. In fact, if you've watched before, I'm sure you've heard me say that this is my favorite half hour of the week when you and I get to come together and spend a bit of time together. And tonight is no exception to that, but I will admit to being a little bit nervous because what I'm going to share with you tonight is deeply personal. But I'm doing it with the attitude of hopefulness that I will make a difference for someone who is watching tonight, someone who watches after this broadcast airs live, because that's very important to me. I just returned from South Carolina for a conference, and when I got home the next day in Oklahoma, it was as warm as it was the day before in South Carolina. It didn't feel at all like the holiday season. But it's been more than that, I think, for a lot of us this year. It's not just the weather that's bouncing back and forth. It's so much that's going on around us that we seemingly have no control over. COVID, we all had hoped to be well behind us by now, is certainly not. We're seeing new news literally every hour about the virus. And that produces a bit of anxiety for some of us and a whole lot of anxiety for others. This time of year can be incredibly challenging, no matter where we are in our lives, whether we're young or we're old or anywhere in between. We can be healthy or we can be infirm. We can be white or black or any color at all. You see, this time of year brings out so much emotion for so many of us that sometimes it's hard to reckon with all that we're feeling, and it simply feels like we're not feeling anything at all. In fact, that's one of the things that happens to so many people this time of year. I know it's happened to me, and that's the story that I want to share with you this evening. Some years ago, I was in New York for Christmas. It was not my first Christmas there, but it was my first Christmas living alone in the city. And the entire time between Thanksgiving and Christmas just didn't seem quite right to me. I felt off, like there was something maybe the matter with me. I went through all the motions of making it a festive time, and yet it just wasn't working. At that time, I had a job with a tyrant for a boss. It was not a day that I go home without crying at the end of the day. It was seemingly hopeless on that front. But I was grateful that I had friends, that I had family here in Oklahoma, a long way away. But that made it more tolerable to go to work every day in a really, really difficult time. You know, it wasn't just work, though. Again, there was just something that was eating at me in a way that drew me more and more and more to my knees. It was Christmas Eve, and I had done what had become a tradition for me, and that was singing in the church choir for the midnight service, a service that always brought me such joy. And that year, it was kind of just going through the motions. I sang the songs, lit the candles. And at the conclusion of the service, there were lots of hugs, people wishing each other Merry Christmas and sending one another on their way. As I left, there were the Christmas tree sellers, the guys from Vermont who came to New York City every year to sell their Christmas trees. The trees were lined up against the church, and they still had some left for sale even at midnight on Christmas morning. I walked past them and wished them Merry Christmas. I wasn't ready to go back home yet because it would just be me sitting there. So I walked a few blocks to my neighborhood bar, thinking surely I would see some friends there, people who I could always count on being there. And that night I walked in and it was just Jerry, the bartender, a couple of people I didn't know, and me. I stayed long enough to have a beer, wishing that I had arrived earlier to greet some of my friends. And then I started the walk back to my apartment. It was a walk that normally took 7 or 8 minutes, but it seemed to just take forever that night. One slow step after another. And I got to my building and I climbed the stairs to my 4th floor apartment, locked the door, and looked around. The lights were on the Christmas tree. There were some empty boxes from gifts that my mom and dad had sent that I had opened earlier in the day. And me. I put on the radio to listen to some Christmas carols and then realized that was probably a challenging thing to do. And yet I stayed with it. I put my coat back on and raised the window and sat on the fire escape, listening to the music, thinking, shivering against the cold, and wondering what my purpose was in life. And would anyone even notice if I was gone? I sat there literally for hours. My hands were numb from the cold, the music drifting onto the fire escape from my bedroom. The carols played, people laughing, talking about Santa. And all I could feel was this deep emptiness inside. Finally, I could see the first brightening of the sky on Christmas morning. I climbed back through the window and closed it and locked it. Sat down on the bed for a few minutes, wondering what was coming next for me. I got up, grabbed my hat, my gloves, my scarf. I left the apartment and began walking downstairs, having no idea where I might go. I thought first about going back to see the tree at Rockefeller Center, but I'd done it twice that season. And that hadn't been the magical moment that I was looking for. And so I decided I would just walk. As I walked down the sidewalk where the Vermont Christmas tree guys had been, they weren't there anymore. They had swept every needle from the sidewalk. It was as if they never even existed. And again, I thought about myself and I wondered, would anyone even know that I was here once I was gone? As I said, I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I had to go. And as I started around the corner, the first flakes of snow began to fall. Growing up in Oklahoma, I had never seen a white Christmas, something I'd always longed to see. And here it was snowing on Christmas morning. And I felt no joy, no sense of wonder. I just felt sad and alone and desperate. I'd walked a couple of blocks and the snow quickened by then. And I noticed pieces of wrapping paper that were being blown and mixed with the snow. And all of it, I wondered where it would go. And I began walking then in the different direction toward the George Washington Bridge. I can't tell you that I was going to take my life, but I sure can't tell you that I wasn't. I truly felt alone in the world. I imagine that there have been times like me that you have been in a crowded situation with a big crowd, maybe a party or a family gathering or even in a mall, where everyone seems to be so happy and you feel so alone. It's very possible to be all alone, even in a crowd. And so being around people was the last thing on my mind. I'd called my parents before church to wish them Merry Christmas, to thank them for the gifts, with a smile in my voice, so that they wouldn't know how much I was hurting. In fact, I did a pretty good job of not letting anybody see what was going on in my heart. But while I was so busy trying to protect other people, I was hurting myself more every day, to the point that now I couldn't see the future. I couldn't see the next day or the next year. It was as if it was a wall of darkness just hanging over me. I looked up at what should have been the George Washington Bridge, and instead all it was heavy snowfall now. I heard some children running in the snow and a clash of metal on concrete as they hit their sled to slide down the hill. That single moment would have been enough normally to put a smile on my face, chance to wish the kids Merry Christmas. And instead I walked on by. I walked for a bit before getting to the bridge, and in fact, even took a long way about getting there. I didn't see other people outside, and I just imagined in this city of 9 million people that everyone was at home feeling snug and happy, joyous on Easter morning. Well, in retrospect, I know that I was not the only one feeling as I was feeling that night, so alone, so empty, so destitute, so without care for myself. I continued to walk. And as I did, this thought came into my mind. I had moved from Christmas Eve to Christmas Day, and I was still there, still breathing, still numb, still hurting, and still alone. But I'd made it through the night into a new dawn. I can't tell you the thought process that I went through, because even now, when I look back, I have no idea. But what I do know is I turned around and started my way back to my apartment. And I thought to myself, you're going back to a place you never thought you would see again. I stopped at the candy store, and Pete was there, as he is every morning. And as I did every morning, I bought a newspaper, a cup of coffee, a pack of cigarettes, continued my journey back to my apartment. I got back and set the coffee down, took off my hat. It was still cold, so I left my coat on. And I laid down on the bed, eyes wide open. But the next thing I knew, I was waking up a few hours later, still snowing. In fact, it was beautiful, big chunks of snow falling. And I realized more fully that I had made it into a new day. Why is that important? It's because, friends, the only thing I can offer you right now is that you can hang on. Oh, whether it's politics, whether it's family makeup, whether you're the black sheep of the family, whether your friends have abandoned you, whether you're looking for employment, or this year has been bad because you've lost a parent, or your child is incarcerated, you've lost your job, or maybe just lost your way. But you've hung on one day into the next. Christmas Eve is a day. Christmas is another day. The same for New Year's. New Year's Eve is that night that we are supposed to be celebrating life in its fullest. We have great expectations for an extraordinary night, but rarely does it work out quite that way. In fact, if we can think of it as being just another day, if we can get through it, we can make it to New Year's Day, a new year, new opportunities, a new sense of hope. Because that's what I found on that Christmas afternoon, that something in me had enough hope. I can't tell you if it was hope in God or hope in me or hope in the world, but had enough hope to hang on. Friends, there is no shame in feeling sad, for being depressed. The shame comes when we hide it from ourselves and each other, when we feel like we can't talk to anyone. And see, that's not a societal shame. It's something that we feel on our own. And I can't tell you how to hang on, but I can tell you that you have the ability to do that. If you make it through the darkest night of this year and wake up in a new day, you have a new opportunity. There are not enough self-help books in the world. There's not enough self-care steps to follow when you're feeling that way. Instead, I would encourage you to not be thinking big plans or what's going to happen next, good or bad. But just concentrate on making it through, holding on through the night into a new day. If you can do that, then you have a chance, not just for yourself, but a chance to make a difference in the lives of other people. And see, that's the funny thing about, pardon me, being depressed this time of year. We don't have the ability when we are in that darkness to understand how much we mean to other people. Oh, it may not be something that we'll ever fully understand. But the kindness that you showed a stranger, the tear that you wiped away from a child, you have made an impact, a positive impact in someone's life. I'm not telling you that as a means of hanging on. I'm telling you that because that's what you can see with greater clarity when you hang on. This is the week when more suicides are committed than any other time of the year. We know that older folks are more vulnerable. We know that LGBTQ plus people, especially young people, are at great risk. But the risk can come from anywhere and affect any of us. So I'm not just telling you that you can hang on, because I know you can. I'm encouraging you to share this message with someone else, to let them know that no matter how dark it is, if they could just get through this day, tomorrow is a new opportunity to find new hope. You'll see the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on your screen right now. There's no shame in picking up the phone. In fact, it shows that you want to hang on in some part of your being. But pay attention to your friends too. Even those that seem like they're on top of the world can hold a dark secret of loneliness, of despair deep inside. I have hope today because I was able to hang on all those Christmases ago. It's something I will never forget, because even now, when the dark days come, I can look back and see that by grace, I held on that night. And I know that you can too. I won't try to dazzle you here. That's not who I am. When I come into your home every week, you see me for who I am. But what I do want you to understand is that you matter. Your life matters. You as a person matter. We all have a place in this world. And if we hang on one day to the next, it becomes easier to see that place that we have. Friends, if you are dealing with a difficult time right now, reach out. Call someone. Go deep inside and understand that you are a worthy person. And if none of that is possible, just remember this, that you do have the ability to hang on. So for all the challenges that this year may have presented to us, all of the tragedies, the losses that comes with life, and sometimes life catches up to us. But even in those weak moments, you can hang on. And I'm begging you, just hang on this Christmas, this New Year's, because in the light of day, you'll be glad you did. And I will be glad you did. Our time is about up for this evening. I'm not going to belabor this anymore. But I'm grateful that you allowed me the opportunity just to be open and honest with you, because it was something I felt like I owed to you. You trust me every week. And I trusted you enough to allow me to say these things tonight, and in the belief and the hope that someone watching or someone who will see this broadcast will be moved, not to make big life changes, not to make big decisions, but just to hang on. I won't be here next week. It's only because I'm taking an evening off. But I'm hanging on this Christmas. And I hope that you will count on seeing me on January 3rd when we're back for a new year of broadcasts, because I'm counting on seeing you then too. If you need any help, reach out now. And know that you have the strength within you, even if you feel broken and fragile. You really can. You really must. Just hang on this Christmas. Friends, thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to share this with you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for letting me be myself. Let's all hang on this Christmas and be ready for a new year of coming together, caring, loving, working. But first, just hang on. On behalf of our chair, Alicia Andrews, Vice Chair Eric Proctor, Nana Dankwa, our secretary, and Rachel Hunsaker, our treasurer, I'm Scott J. Hamilton, thanking you on behalf of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, the Hamilton Report, and most especially myself. If your holidays aren't happy, hang on. Happiness is yet to come. Please take care of yourself. I'll be back on January 3rd, and I count on you being here too. Good night.